Okay, we declare this Strategic Planning Committee meeting on Monday, October 24th, 2011 is hereby open and called to order. The invocation and the pledge be led by Councilman Kluwat.
Please stand. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. You blessed us with some pleasant some pleasant weather, and we hope we have a little rain coming behind it. It's been very dry. Lord, we thank you for the health of the community of Ascension Parish. Lord, please look down on all the elected officials that have been newly elected and re-elected, that they may carry on the duties of the residents of Ascension Parish in good faith and work together in a spirit of cooperation. We ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Councilman Thompson was not able to make it tonight. Everyone else is here. Public comment period. Anyone wishing to comment on any discussion items? We'll have 3 minutes. You sign up with in the front, and we will call you up to speak. And number 4, discussion of burning in Ascension Parish. This is something that we're bringing up again, something that we've discussed in the past, and we've run into roadblocks. We've started probably a couple of years, and just to give you a little background, as far back as when Mr. Grant was here before Beth came on, we had meetings with all of the trash providers in the parish, garbage providers, and we were trying to work out a solution where our private providers provided this service so that we can get debris removed so that it would cut down on burning, have an option on people burning in the parish. And we also want to make note that this is not, we're not having discussions about curbing any burning in the rural areas of the parish, only on subdivision areas that houses are located close together. So we have a number of issues that have come up, and so we want to go back and discuss this and try to figure out the best way to handle this within the parish. With that, we have a man that called that wished to be on the agenda and speak. He has some background information, and this is kind of typical of some of the problems that we do have within the parish, and trying to figure out ways to curb this problem so everyone can live together here. Mr. Tinsley Salmons, would you like to come up and share with us? Look, you can go right there, Mr. Tinsley. Right here.
To the podium.
Okay, folks, I just wanted to bring this to everyone's attention, and of course, as the population of the parish grows and the nature of materials, containers, and what have you changes, the burning is becoming a more serious problem. We had to stay in our homes for the better part of a week recently because of burning just to the north of us by a contractor who had recently purchased a property there. And of course, it was pretty obvious to him what he was doing, but apparently it didn't make any difference. We also have people burning on the next street over, or in the area behind our homes. And they're surely burning things that are in violation of federal law. I did contact the state people, and Mr. Cheatham is his name, I believe. He called me Friday, and the state is on that particular matter. the contractor across from us burned an old trailer without removing the toxic material. It got out of hand, and the Prairieville Fire Department came, extinguished the fire, and within an hour, they were taking the stuff that the Prairieville guys extinguished and started another fire with it. Now, for a solid week, we had a north wind blowing down our street, and it was bad. Deputy Richard Bowe lives across from us, and he can certainly back up anything I say or have written on this subject. So that's my only purpose for being here, is to bring it to everyone's attention that sooner or later, and preferably sooner, the parish needs a burning ordinance, because there's no way in the world that the sheriff's department people can roam around every time they smell smoke and go and see what people are burning. And I'll tell you this, what they're burning is not grass and paper. You know, they're burning things like treated wood, stuff like that. I might be old and I might be half blind and deaf, but I can smell. So I thank you for your time. That's all I want to do, is bring that to your attention. And I have brought several discs with pictures of the fire and a couple of things that I've written concerning what I just said here. Oh, okay.
There it is right there.
So I would like to leave those with the folks here on the council, and I would appreciate it if the council would give it their serious consideration.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons. We appreciate you taking the time to come out.
Thank you, sir.
And this is one thing I do think that we are covered right now with, you cannot burn anything with any type of toxic materials in it, trailers and such, that is already covered by parish ordinance. And I do believe that our code enforcement officer can observe that and then call in the authorities to shut it down and come before our parish court. Beth, is that within the jurisdiction of the parish court as we've established it? Because we're still feeling our way through this now.
In the adjudication court?
Yes.
I would have to yield to legal for an opinion.
As of right now, Kent, they're still doing just junk cars and white goods and trying to get a feel for that before they start integrating other things. I don't think they've started integrating anything else yet. I'm not the prosecutor for that court, so I
Okay.
can't tell you definitely. But to my knowledge, I don't think they've integrated anything else yet.
Okay, just for this narrow part that we have right now, that we have on the books, we would like to see them go into that area and try to get a timeline as to a procedure, and maybe we can send to code enforcement so that we can get it publicized, where we would have some type of hotline for someone like Mr. Simmons that would see this and could call it in, and that way we could send someone out to identify from the parish that the people are breaking the current ordinances, and we can then call the necessary enforcement.
I'll let them know, and that can be one of the first things that's integrated if everyone wants. And I'll let the Secretary for Code Enforcement know, and the prosecutor, and talk to the hearing officer and make sure they're okay with everything, or let them know what we want to do next. And that way they can tell the people who go observe everything and take pictures and stuff, our officers, and then we can start integrating that also.
Okay, because that's already something that we have, that is against the law, to burn anything that's any type of toxic
Right.
material.
But we hadn't put it in adjudication court
Okay.
yet, but if I let them know that's the next step and that's what you all want next, then it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, I would think unless there's any objection, I know all of,
I can't see where it would be hard to integrate that in.
Yeah.
I don't think so either. I mean, they just need to know that that's something that you all want them to start accepting right away, and that way they can let the officers know that go do the investigations and stuff, so they can go start taking pictures and getting statements and stuff like that.
Mr.
Chairman,
Valentine.
yeah, my question would be, wouldn't it also fall under a nuisance situation? I mean, if we would clarify the nuisance ordinance so that it can, I mean, if it's, you saying we have the
We-
toxic already on the state level?
Yes, well,
But-
on the state level and the
On the
parish.
parish,
level.
okay.
I don't have no computer.
You know, just for the premise that, like this gentleman here, something being burned, he knew it was a trailer, he knew it probably had something, but somebody else may not know whether it's toxic or
Right.
not, but can still, would file a complaint dealing as a nuisance.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're working up to.
Yeah.
I
There-
agree with you, you know, not leave it up to a citizen to try to decide whether
Right.
something's toxic or not.
Exactly.
They see something, they think it,
It would
call
have
it
to be
in.
investigated, that's right.
There's still other avenues at this time, but this way we could just, like we've always wanted to do, speed up everything. So that's
Okay.
why, you know, they still have options right now. They can call the sheriff's office and make a report and,
Well,
Do what
you know, it gets to the point where if you're a citizen and you have to go through a certain number of roadblocks to get something done that should be done,
right.
then it gets very frustrating. So we want to try to streamline that so that they can make one call to a certain person and we can follow it up as a parish. We have code enforcement officers on staff. We have the court set up. And so we want to try to let us know what it would take to streamline that process. And then we can move forward with this particular instance. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Johnson.
I guess part of what I'm seeing and what I've seen in the past is that if we do have something in parish code that prevents that type of burning, the sheriff's office doesn't know about it because they're not enforcing it. And now part of this is kind of a dual phase thing, because if our code enforcement officers are going to be the guys that handle this, then the dispatchers in the 911 center or in the sheriff's office dispatch center need to know that so they can get the numbers for those folks so they can call them out. Because you're going to have a dual response between them
Right.
and the fire department, typically in most situations. And in most of our situations, we're dealing with volunteers who, through legal reasons, I understand it, we can't deputize them, for lack of a better word, as enforcement officers to handle this stuff. So that's where the disconnect is happening. Because you've got the sheriff's office, who is the enforcement agency for the parish, who's either not aware of it or is not enforcing it for whatever reason. I'm not sure. We'd have to talk to the sheriff or Chief Bacalao
we've already
to find that out. I know we've had some conversations in the past, and the fire service, to get those guys and make sure that this is being handled at the point in time when the complaints are being made, which is a 24/7 situation. So I know the fire department's not wanting to get into the enforcement part. At least the people I've talked to aren't in that method. So we need to clarify where we at and what we have
Okay.
to make
just-
sure that everybody's on board with that.
Just to give you some background, we have met with, we had a meeting with sheriff's office and other people, and the sheriff said that in a normal situation, it's not for their deputies to decide what's parish ordinance, what's not. And that they would, that's why we started our code enforcement program. And we take our code enforcements, they investigate, and if they find that there's a violation, then they just simply call the deputies, and the deputies will follow up. That opens up for the deputies to follow up, and they said they would be glad to follow up in those instances and offer any assistance that need to be done. So, and now it's a task of our code enforcement to make sure that that happens from there. And we'll have some more meetings. We were having these meetings probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, and worked out all this, and we were waiting for the adjudicated court to actually come into play, and it's taken us that long for that to happen. So now we're going to have to revisit all of the methods to get to that point. So
Okay.
we do realize that we just want to get the ball started, and so this is one area that we want to address. Mr. Salmon said about the contractor, and to let all contractors know, if you're going to contractor that's going to burn, you do need a permit for all burning for contractors. And other than that, you must bring to a landfill if you don't have a permit. So all goods that a contractor brings off, or you are subject to lose that. through the parish. You can get a, yes, for large, large burning.
We don't have a burning permit. Wow.
That's what I was told. We'll check on it then. Okay. Because that's what we were asked to get a permit before on burning large objects, trees and such as that, big trees and such that you pile up. Please check on that, Ricky, because that's what. And I know of some contractors that had some. Okay. And then please see what we can do about getting some sort of method and a hotline where people can make one call.
Mr. Chairman, I think that using the adjudication court is probably the right way to go. And it'll be the most efficient for the parish citizens, and we already have a system in place. So what we'll do is the administration will work with you all to make sure that it's defined and get back to you for the next meeting.
Yes, I mean, we're just looking for some suggestions. Give us some suggestions that we can look at, that we can finally get something to vote on, that we can offer up. That's going to be somewhere along those lines, I guess. And once we get it, we can take it and take a look at it and see what the consensus of all the members are. Anything else? Mr. Compton?
I just want to be clear, just so that we're all headed in the generally right direction. I can't find anything in our code of ordinances about burning anything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always been our understanding, when someone calls our office and complains about someone burning, we say, we don't have a burn ordinance. There is statute about burning too close to residential property and things like that, but there's nothing in our code of ordinances. So I think our first step would be to establish the rules by which we would send out our code enforcement officer. Because you've got to pass an ordinance to say, what do we believe you're in violation of? And at first blush, what comes off of my head is we're really only responding to complaints during business hours. I mean, code enforcement, well, what I'm getting at is our code enforcement process is somebody sends us a complaint, and the following day, following week, our code enforcement officer, if somebody's burning something and they call us at 8 o'clock at night, we're not equipped to send out a code enforcement officer to determine if he's burning tires or paint. I mean,
That's one of the things within this is that's the problem, because when you start burning man-made material, that's typically when you start getting the toxics released in the smoke and off the gases from the fire. And that's going to be the tricky part of this, is that that's 24/7. And the state regulations, state law, and that's, I'm not aware of anything that we've had. I know we've had some discussion. There was some stuff, as my understanding, that was brought before, but didn't get through because of some concerns that were brought up at the time that it was brought forward, as far as enforcement, other things. And so that's going to be the trick. If we're going to do it with code enforcement, it's going to be a 24/7 deal, and nights, weekends, whenever, because there's no telling when somebody's going to start a fire and you're going to get a complaint from it, and that's going to be part of the process within this ordinance that's going to have to be figured out as to, they're going to call the dispatch center. Dispatch center, who are they going to call? Are they going to send a deputy out first? Are they going to send a code enforcement officer out first? Are they going to send the fire department out first? Are they going to send some kind of combination of all of them? How is that going to work as far as the enforcement part of any ordinance that we come up with or we put into place? Because whether it's due to someone having asthma or anything along that, and anybody burning something close to that residence, whether it be man-made material or leaves or whatever, regular trash that may be causing a health issue for that particular type person? Or is it going to be something to the point of where it's strictly limited to tires, rubber, those type of hydrocarbon type materials that are going to give off toxic fumes, and go from there? It's not as simple as just saying we're going to prohibit burning and then getting into the permit side of it. That's a totally different animal as to what do you want to permit, how do you want to permit, where do they got to go and get it, and all that other type of stuff. because I know there's still a bunch of people that live around the parish that, you know, we discussed in the past, that whether it's burning their limbs or whatever they scrape up in the yard at this time of the year that the leaves are all falling, or whether it's people that have a 55-gallon drum out back that's been burning their garbage for years. That's all going to have to be somewhat addressed in this, or at least identified to the point of this is something that we're not messing with, in my opinion.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Cluett.
We have, you know, we must establish an ordinance by all means, but we have several ordinances that we've established on different things that are enforced by our law enforcement at all times of the day, 24 hours a day. Because the ordinance is parish-wide ordinance, and it's well within, very clear, and it's well within their rights to enforce the law. You know, we've had ordinances that have came in front of us that we've revised or changed, and they enforce it 24 hours a day. The noise ordinance, one, and there's plenty more, you know. So I think we got a lot of discussion between now and actually implementing, you know, how something's going to be carried out. Definitely, I have no problem with adjudicated court being used for that.
Purpose of this meeting is to start the discussion
And that's
and
what
to
legal-
see the problems, and for everybody to start working, and we want to work. Please give us something. I know Beth has offered to start from that standpoint of taking all the information in and giving us some options where we can start. And basically the premise is we don't want to be burning in, we want to get to the point where we don't have to burn in subdivision. We want to allow people to burn in rural areas, and we don't want to allow anyone to burn toxic materials, and be able to enforce that. And basically that's it. Now, one of the other problems that we have is that we're expecting people to not burn things, and yet we have no way of picking them up within the parish. We have no debris removal. And many people now, you have single mothers raising families with a car, a two-door car, and no way to carry off a sofa or something like that and bring it to a landfill. And we have our garbage providers, private providers, that are not picking these things up. So one of the tasks that we need to also look at would be the possibility, if people in the parish would want to, that we would either partner with some type of garbage provider, or as a parish as a whole get into debris removal, where we purchase a couple of these debris trucks with little cranes on it and pick up debris on a scheduled basis. So that's something we need to look at. If we're going to tell people they can't burn, then we have to give them a method of picking and removing stuff from the yard, or it's going to pile up there. And you know, we also have that problem with people complaining about other people leaving stuff within their yard and piling up. So those are the problems. These things have been discussed for about the last 5 years, and we would like to bring this to some sort of sensible method of getting, number one, the trash cleaned up and proper burning in the parish. Anyone else comments?
Well, and many of our discussions over the past years have been also what you said, within a parish-wide garbage contract, or parish-wide ordinance of garbage pickup, that would be incorporated in whatever service that would be provided by the private industry to do that. To also incorporate recycling and intermittent debris pickup, you know, at times. And that would take care of a lot of toxic stuff that people are burning.
Any further comments? Myra, could you put this on the agenda for next month, and let's go to the next step? And we will vow to keep this on the agenda till we come to some sort of conclusion. Discussion of amendment of Ascension Parish subdivision regulations, section 17405-2. which is time and place of public hearing for the signs when you are advertising. Planning and zoning had had a recommendation to come here, and I know Mr. Johnson, you've been working on a possible alternative, and we wanted to hand that out from the council. I know as it came to the council, they had some certain questions or times about what we need to do with that. So, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, one of the things that we had looked at was what other local communities are doing in the area. And basically, what we have is about, currently on the books, is about as much as what anybody else is doing. We looked at what is the intent of the signs and what we're trying to convey. And the intent of the signs is to notify the public of a public hearing on some type of development within that area of the property. What we came up with is, being that is the sole purpose of the intent of the sign, is just to notify about the public hearing. We looked at it and came up with size of the sign as being 4x4. Is that correct, Ricky? I'm looking for it.
Yep.
Yeah, 4x4 is minimum of 5 feet to the height of the center of the sign. So if you, and that's to the average elevation of the property. So the developer or whoever's working on the property, wouldn't be any hole that the sign would be in that would put it at a low elevation to the ground, or up on might have a dirt mound or something up there where it's 20 foot up in there. At this particular point, it would be at an average height of or at the 5 foot of the average height of the lot, which should put it within plenty of visibility of anyone passing. The colors that they had, the yellow background with the black letters, is one of the highly visible colors that's there. On the sign, it should have the type of the proposed development, whether it's commercial, residential, the date and time of the hearing, the location of the hearing, and contact information for planning and zoning if anyone should have any questions as far as the particulars on what's happening on the property. The other thing that we did with it is the signs are currently placed horizontal to the roadway that they would be put on it. We turned that 90 degrees and to where it would be a double-sided sign, to where as you're riding down the road you could read it, like majority of signs that are placed on the roadways are now. Political signs that are out right now is a good example of that. And the other things in there are pretty standard as far as what's been going on. The other thing that they had that we kept in there is developer should present a photo of the sign installed a minimum of 10 days prior to the scheduled hearing date, and the photo should be time, date, and stamped so it can be proven that the sign is in place. Anything else I missed on that, Ricky, as far as what the changes that we looked at?
There's two significant ones. The language on 2C reads prior to any hearing before the Planning Commission. So that covers a business park development, it covers historic site developments, it covers minor subdivisions, major subdivisions, as well as family partitions.
Yeah.
The second difference is down at item 4, where it says final plats shall be excluded. At that point, the property is developed. You're going to have streets, you're going to have the infrastructure in place. There's no reason to require additional signage. If somebody's not aware that there's a development happening, they've completely missed it at that point.
And not only that, too, the inspectors are involved with it. The public, the only reason the subdivision could be stopped at that point is if they're in violation of the codes, correct?
Correct.
So, so this puts everything that's having to have a public hearing other than that last item there with the subdivision, the final plots.
It's also our intention to secure the signs so that when the applicant comes into our office and submits their application, we would give them their signs for their property. We would have to apply a fee to that, but it would be a boilerplate sign for a residential subdivision, a boilerplate sign for a commercial subdivision. We'd give them the sticker that they'd put on the sign for the date, but at that point, the applicant wouldn't have to worry about going out and finding somebody to paint them a sign that's yellow with black letters. They wouldn't have to buy a full-size sheet of plywood and cut 2 feet off of it. It would be a standard yellow vinyl sign like we currently already produce for the zoning meetings and for our Board of Adjustment meetings.
I think that would be a great idea, and it would also lend continuity. People would recognize the signs, everybody would have the same thing. And they'd recognize then that this is some type of rezoning. I think that's good for that. One thing that sometimes people don't think about, you're putting the signs up, and a 4x4 sign is pretty large from the standpoint of making it stay there. If it's going to be up probably a month, and to get, Ricky, can you get everything you want to get on? I know I'm looking at political signs now. A 3x4 is a fairly large sign that's visible a long ways. Can we get by with everything we need on it with a 3x4 sign that would be easier to keep upright and not have it fall over?
I believe so. I mean, I would believe that we could fit it on a 3x3 sign because we're really not, the information will be the same on every one of these signs. The only thing that will be different is the date. And so once the signs are out there and put in place, the people who are out there looking for signs will really just be looking for the date at that point. Our zoning signs, I believe, are 24 by 24. They're 2 feet by 2 feet. So, do I think we could do 3 feet by 3 feet? I think so. Do I think we could do 3 by 4? I think so. I have no reason to believe we couldn't fit it on either of those signs.
If it's no objection, could you look at placing all the necessary materials on the different sizes and give us the best, reasonable thing? We wanted at the very least 3x3, but from 3x3 to 4x4, and give us something that would be reasonable. Give us some samples.
We look at them.
I'll
make sure
have the
that-
IT department print 3 different versions, 3x3, 3x4, and 4x4, so we can compare them and
That'd
see what
be
it looks
fine.
like.
Because I have experience trying to keep them up. So that's another thing, and I think that would be very prudent with things that would look much better. The other thing is visibility. If you have an area that's wooded and this overhangs and everything, are we going to require them to clear the area so that it can be seen? Because most of the time it's on the other side of a fence. And I see nowadays when you look at these signs, they put it on the fence where you can see it from that standpoint. If there's wooded areas, obstructions or anything, or is that going to be an option? Or
I think if we wanted to add some verbiage, it would go in section CI in either A, B, C, or D. We could add another letter that essentially says there shall be no physical obstructions to the sign once placed in the correct location. We can add some verbiage in there that basically says you can't obstruct the sign with something. If you've got to clear something so we can see the sign, clear it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because that can be a problem, and also if it's not able to clear it, then they should have some options to maybe turn both of them the other way. And the intent is to make sure everyone knows. That's correct. Yes, sir, Mr. Kluart.
Ricky, you saying that this signage requirement basically goes with any type of subdivision, family petition?
Anything that requires a public hearing other than that final plot on subdivision
Okay.
is what the intent was. That way nobody is left out.
Well, one of the things we're getting things that are being subdivided that's 10, 15 acres, and it wouldn't qualify, yet it still has a great deal of impact upon the neighbors, and they should know about anything that comes to a public hearing. And I know I've had some complaints in the past, and I said, you're going to see a sign there, and it wasn't because it didn't qualify. So I want to make sure everybody has opportunity. Any other questions, comments? This is just for discussion, take a look at, and give us suggestions next meeting. Ms. Myra, we'll have this back on the agenda. And number 6, discussion of amendment of Ascension Parish subdivision regulation 174092, which is basically the appeal process. The Planning Commission has sent us a recommendation for appeals. There's been discussions or concerns about delays and when this will happen. Ricky, can you please give us an overall view of what do we have now, what is being proposed by the Planning Commission, what is being proposed by what we've discussed
Okay, so
by the administration?
the reason that this proposal's before you is the disagreement between staff and the commission as to how the code is interpreted. So the way we interpret the current code is if the commission denies an application, the applicant submits their appeal to the commission, and that appeal is heard at the next meeting. Okay? The way the commission is saying that they want it to be is the commission hears your application, and if they deny your application, they want the applicant to then submit an appeal application to the commission. So the next month, they will hear your application. If they agree that you can appeal, then the next month, you get to appeal that decision back to the commission. So they have to hear your application for appeal first, and then they hear your actual appeal the following month. The version that you're looking at in front of you essentially says, if you're denied, you go straight to the appeals board, because it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to appeal that decision that they just made right back to them. You should go to this other board, and they have the final say whether or not to grant your appeal or not. There's stuff in here that essentially says, you know, if you're violating the code, that doesn't grant you the right to appeal. It's basically interpretation of the code. I think that the appeal process comes into play. The time delay based on the revision that was presented to you is excessive, and it's not really fair to the applicant when they just need an answer, yes or no, to have to apply to get a yes or no and then wait another 30 days to get the yes or no again, and then if they get another no, they go to the appeals board. It adds up essentially 60 to 90 days.
It's 60 to 90 days just added on a process that they go to an endpoint anyway.
With the same people hearing it.
Right.
Right.
And so any business that comes in to this parish, needs to go through the process. Our job is to make sure that they have the proper regulations and they follow the proper regulations, but it's also our job to streamline that so that any type of business knows in advance what the timeline should be. A lot of times the money stream and everything is going to be dependent upon that, any type of business transaction. So
The other
it's
issue,
important that they know in advance.
the other issue with the ordinance presented to you doesn't address one of the major downfalls of the existing ordinance, because it still reads, if the planning commission denies preliminary or final approval to a major or minor subdivision. It once again doesn't address business park, historic site overlays, some other projects that the planning commission does hear. Our appeal process doesn't even address. So the revised version that you have in front of you simply says, if an application. So any hearing that would be heard before the planning commission is subject to this same appeal process. It doesn't limit it to major or minor subdivisions.
Okay. So it would all be the same.
Yes, sir.
Anybody have any particular questions?
I got one. Ricky, I'm trying to, I got a question. I don't know exactly how to phrase it, I guess, and nobody's here from the Planning and Zoning Commission, but the intent of this letter that they would get, or under their recommendation, I'm trying to figure out what's it going to do. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if I have some property that I want to build a building on for a business or whatever, and it gets denied, and I'm trying to understand to make sure that I'm not looking at this the wrong way, and that this is not just, is it legitimate to add this time frame to the process? What am I, if I'm the person looking for an answer, going to get by submitting them a letter and them saying, yeah, we'll hear your appeal? It's like, like I said, I want to make sure that I'm not looking at it from the wrong standpoint of view. If it's something that's going to be legitimate, I'm willing to look at it. But if it's not anything, I don't see anything here from that makes
I don't
this.
have the exact answer you're looking for, but what I have is my analysis of the code that's written. And it's Joe Prairieville submits an application to the commission, and the commission denies it for whatever reason they choose to deny it. But Joe Prairieville disagrees. He thinks that he was treated unfairly. He treats that they asked questions that aren't relevant to the code for whatever reason. He is then required to write a letter that says, Dear Planning Commission, I believe an error was made. I believe the code was misinterpreted. I believe X, Y, or Z. He submits that letter to the commission, and they decide based on that letter if they want to rehear his application the following month. It's my understanding if they deny that letter, then he can go to the appeals board. And I said, well, then why would everybody just submit a letter that says, I believe you guys made a huge mistake, I want an appeal? You know, just submit a bad letter and you automatically go to the appeals board anyway. This doesn't solve that problem. It just doesn't.
Right, okay.
Well, take a look at it. Suggestions, comments, please get with Ricky sometime during this process to see what, yes, sir, Mr. Valentine.
Ricky, how many times has our appeals board been and looked at something?
Not since I've been here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, this seems to be not a problem, except in an instant. And it's a good process to have in place, but here you're asking 3 people on an appeals board that primarily is appointed by administration. They're sitting out there for 2 years, they don't ever meet, and then they brought in, I mean, whereas the planning and zoning is something that, looks at this stuff, that the process, I understand the appeal process, but it seems like we need to work out something better than that. It's just that's really putting 3 citizens in a situation, they got to start all over anyway. You talk about a length of time, I mean, they're not even, unless they watch it planning and zoning, expecting to have an appeal. They got to start from the beginning to start off with. Man's got to appeal this entire case. So, there's got to be something better that we can do. If the planning and zoning, I mean, we're elected officials. We ought to be the appeal. I mean, if it comes down to it, to be honest with you, it just should come to us.
Right, and that's clearly one of the options, we considered on a recent case. However, our code specifically
Right.
addresses an appeals
I
board.
understand.
And
And years ago, that might have been okay, because we've probably been in there for years, but I'm not sure if that would be, something that would be prudent at this time. So we might want to look at the whole
Well,
situation.
I think the biggest reason that people are not utilizing the appeals board, because currently the way things are written is the time involved it takes to come back again and apply again for another meeting with planning and zoning, and then you have to apply for an appeals. And so when you're looking at any type of of development, what we want to do is help the good developers or good business people, not help the bad ones, and yet streamline the time it takes for good people to have business in the parish.
And
So-
Councilman, I believe it's as simple as changing where it says Planning Commission Appeals Board to Parish Council. That simply solves that problem, and
kinda
I would be
agree with you.
completely agreeable to that, because they're a body that's paying attention, they're ingrained in the community, and they know what's going on. And it also gives the applicant a very sound foundation to know, if I get denied, I go to the legislative body and I appeal there. And if you guys deny him, his next step is judicial appeal. He's
Yeah.
going to go to a judge.
That's right.
And it's very clean and simple, and you don't have to worry
Not a
about
problem.
a 3-member board that's not paying attention.
So,
Whatever the right answer
Okay.
is, I mean, would make the
Let's
most
have some
sense.
more discussion.
yes. All right. Any other questions or comments? I think we have plenty to digest in the next month. With that, number 7, Mr. Guard.
I move that we adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Thank everybody for tonight. We have a motion to adjourn, second by Mr. Johnson. At this point, this meeting is hereby adjourned.